Guy, this is a big day for us. I think you know what's coming.
Yeah, Yankee baseball, right? No, I know I know what's coming. I'm messing
Hold your horses, and let's make sure your guys do their part tonight. Because we spent so much time talking about music, we thought we'd reel in rock and roll DJ royalty. Roger and JP from WBAB and also The Bone and Cox Media.
I'm not worthy shit right here.
Wow.
See that?
Guys, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you
Either one of you,
nice.
you could definitely be our agent, that's for sure, because that's quite an introduction.
Well, you know, there's so many ways to go with this, but first of all, welcome to Commercial Break. And you know, ultimately, the world of rock and roll is something that's certainly been what we grew up in and what we talk about all the time, even though we're supposed to be talking about markets. So first, right. Roger, let's just jump in and give us, when I think of the heyday of rock and roll radio, you know, I grew up in the 80s, high school, college, et cetera. And really that's when you got your start. And talk to me about just what it was like when radio was transforming, and it still is, but transforming what we listen to and how you got involved.
Yeah, it really it's changed so much since I started in '84, where it was really just becoming homogenized in a way. It had been in the '70s. Had been very much all the hippie guys were cool and on the radio with long hair, and it was just playing records, and nobody really. And then it got formatted, and then the mom and pop owners started selling to companies, and now you've seen the last 25, 30 years of it's become very corporate, with giants that are now owning all the radio stations instead of literally husband and wife owning a radio station. And all the programming has been corporatized and perfected and targeted and researched and focused. So all of that has happened since I started in '84, where it's now become, it's been such big business for a long time. And now it's going through a bit of a downsizing because of what's going on. Our revenue in radio has been hit pretty hard for the last 5-6 months, as you can imagine. Yeah. So, you know, things are changing.
It's a case where if you think about, you know, again, I'm talking about WPLJ, WNEW, WLIR out here on the island. I mean, you know, these were evolved in terms of the culture. And ultimately, the same things happen in our world. And obviously linear TV is also dying, and we'll get into Spotify and streaming and how we're all consuming music differently. Guy, jump in. Let's talk to JP.
Yeah, JP, I want to get right to it, man. First of all, when I'm out there, which is seldom, I will absolutely put on BAB because there's so few classic rock stations that actually are worthy. I mean, and you guys are clearly one of them. But look, Rolling Stone just put out this list, top 500 albums of all time. I mean, I think they totally jumped the effing shark. I don't know what they were thinking, but what were you how can Zeppelin, how can 8 Zeppelin albums not be in the top 10, let alone not in one of them in the top 58?
Yeah. I stopped paying attention to anything Rolling Stone did years ago because it's a bunch of people trying to be too cool for the room, with the exception of David Frick, who I think is a really good writer. Rolling Stone lists and everything else, they just kind of, I don't know. What did they end up putting at number one? What were the top? What were they?
Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye. Listen,
we can't attack Marvin Gaye.
No, of course not.
But he's not the #1 rock and roll album.
No, not even close. Did anything Metallica, did Nirvana's Nevermind, did Back in Black, and none of that?
Nevermind was 16. Back in Black was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
I think the Who were nowhere in the top 50.
I could be off on this one, but if I remember correctly, Back in Black is still the biggest selling record. That's not a greatest hits record.
Greatest hits
of all time. I'm pretty sure. Am I right, Raj? Does that make sense?
I think you're right.
How could it not be there? Stop it. Stop it.
I wish we could. So one of the things that we love to do, and we talk about it all the time because it just kind of comes up, those 70s bands that were heroes that turned into zeros in the 80s. And I realize that the format in the 80s was different and arena rock and this and that. But when I think Elton John in the 70s versus Elton John in the 80s, I want to throw up. I love Elton in the 70s.
I'm still standing.
Yeah.
He definitely changed.
So talk about that. And who fits that bill for you? Because again, we're talking Chicago, we're talking Genesis, we're talking Yes.
Yeah.
What do you got?
You definitely hit a soft spot with me with Chicago because I loved 70s Chicago. And in the 80s, obviously, it becomes You're the Inspiration Chicago and a lot of other pop hits, which, okay, I'm sure they're finely crafted pop hits, but the brassy Chicago with Terry Kath on guitar and
Totally.
that band that happened, Chicago Transit Authority, was mind-blowing when it occurred. Nobody else liked that. And then within 15 years, they're that. So I see Chicago totally hits me straight through the heart. You're right on with that, Tim.
I throw the Doobie Brothers in there. I mean, there are a lot of bands. I mean, even
Doobie.
listen, think about where Jefferson Airplane went from that to the Starship, the Jefferson Starship. I mean, I know the Doobies maybe not so much, but there are a lot of bands that just completely lost their way in the 80s. And there's some bands that completely continued on. I mean, I'm a Southern rock guy. The Allman Brothers were killing it. Right until a few years ago. I mean, where do the Allmans stack up in your – I mean, when you guys get calls, Roger, who are you getting calls about? I mean, do the Allmans still way up there on the list?
Oh, the Allmans are – I mean, they've become gods. I think it's, in a weird way, they've become bigger than they ever were since they have done the festivals and laid back, whatever it is, whatever the reason is. The last 20 years, I feel like they've grown even bigger than they were when I
think it's Derek Trucks. I think it's Derek Trucks coming into the fold. I don't know. He's such an awesome guitarist.
But I think it's just that they had become icons. You know, they were a great band then, but now people realize, and before when Greg was obviously still alive, they're going to see them with Warren Haynes, and they just iconic legends. And Allman Brothers found their way. I mean, everybody in their career, I feel like the Stones, whoever, they lose their way a little bit here and there. We feel like as the public, judging everybody. But some of them, as you said, came back stronger. And I mean, the Stones have always come back and they're still great. The Allman Brothers became legends and probably, I guess, owned the Southern rock thing with Skynyrd, who are obvious legends for reasons, but they were cut short. They never had a chance to go through the 80s.
I got a great Allman Brothers story real quick. Yeah. I got the chance to, when they would come in and do their March run,
the Beacon.
Peaking at the Beacon. Yeah. And I would get to go in and introduce them, ladies and gentlemen, the Allman Brothers, right? That kind of thing. And
I'm sure we were there.
So then I'm there, and then I was able to sit on the side of the stage, and Dickie Betts is having trouble with his guitar, and he's like pointing to his guitar tech. Before you know it, his guitar tech is not responding the way Dickie Betts wants him to respond. And Dickie Betts, I don't know if you know this, has a very short fuse.
Oh yeah, notorious.
Before you know it, Dickie is chasing off the stage, around the stage, back to the stage, MFing this guy 10 ways to Sunday. It was great. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm getting to see this. It was awesome.
Well, Dickie and Dickie kind of did that, ran his way right out of that band. But by the way, you talk about Skynyrd and some of these bands. One of the other big debates we have is, so JP, when you're alphabetizing your albums, where are you putting where are you putting Skynyrd? Where are you alphabetizing Skynyrd?
If I was doing that, dude, I'm an ADHD kid, so I have no attention to detail whatsoever.
No, are you putting them under the L's or the S's?
No, I get it. It's going under L, I guess.
Yeah, my man, exactly.
It's going under L.
How about Tull? What are you doing with Jethro?
I don't own Jethro Tull. If I would have smashed it or used it as a coaster.
I do. That? You're talking my language there. Jethro Tull is just insulting music without question. But then you find yourself just real. No, I'm just telling. So Roger, here you go. I got a question for you. If you have all your albums, lined up, right? You have all your Who together. Does Townsend go with the Who? Or does Townsend get put by himself? I know what I'm doing. I'm just curious. Same thing with Neil Young, with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Are they off on their own?
Yeah, they're usually separated. And I'm telling you, in rock radio station libraries, Skynyrd's under L, Jethro Tull is under J, and Neil Young is under Y, with CSN under Crosby.
Right.
They don't really separate them. And the Who is not under the. It's definitely under Who.
My man, see that? But now I could be a disc jockey. I mean, I could be Dennis Elsis of today. So real quick, JP, was there any guy or gal for that matter? Carol Miller was, she was huge back. Are there any DJs that sort of influenced what you were doing or what you're doing now?
Influence what I try to do, because we want to entertain first and foremost, and we have conversations about music all the time. But so Stern, I mean, Howard to me is the greatest of all time. He kicked open every door for all of us that want to do personality radio. But when it comes to the music, believe it or not, I work with him. It's Raj, because Roger and I got a 7-year difference. So I would be he was doing afternoons for a long time, and I was driving home from school or whatever it is, and I was listening to Raj. I mean, and there was another guy that was doing mornings at the time. His name was Bob Buckman. I'm working at a radio station. You know, our morning show is a rock show with personality-driven rock show, and our midday show is a talk show where we talk about whatever. But growing up on Long Island, WBAB was everything.
Absolutely.
I had the WBAB bumper stickers in my high school locker, along with that Eddie Van Halen picture that you have as your screensaver.
Right on, man.
In my locker. So I'm working at the place that I grew up listening to the jocks that we hear. You know, I'm a Long Island boy, born and bred. Never left.
It's hot. In fact, I
don't know if you can tell by the accent.
A little bit. Yeah, those BAB events at CPIs and you know, some of these places. I mean, if those walls could talk. So we're talking bands, and we've talked about some of the bands that went bad. How about you guys play a steady diet of classic rock, and a lot of this stuff is I hate change. So when I turn on BAB, and, you know, this isn't a backhanded compliment, but I mean, you guys are spinning the same tunes. Is there anybody where you're just like, look, man, I can't listen to I Want to Know What Love Is one more time? I mean, Lou Gramm bums me out, or just, you know, we're sick of spinning this song. Whereas, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that GNR album you can play till the end of time. But where do you guys go on this?
I'm sorry, Raj, go ahead.
That's all right. You know, Tim, I mean, I think it goes with moods, because I'll tell you, so many stations are playing Guns N' Roses right now that it's starting to burn me. It's starting to become wallpaper, and I don't want that to become wallpaper. Listening. Right, I don't want it to be that. Guns N' Roses, that first album to me is so much gold. I never want to not feel the edge or feel like it's just in the background, like at an auto parts store where it's just there. But, you know, there's certain songs I think that wear on you at certain times that come in and come out. Once in a while, I used to hear, what was the song from The Who that I loved? I think it was Going Mobile. I used to hear it for whatever reason. It was just in my head. And for a 6-month period, maybe a bunch of years ago, it bothered me, but then that went away, you know? So I think songs and bands move in and out to be more annoying or less annoying, you know, whatever it is. But I will always not like Emotional Rescue from the Stones. That song will always annoy me.
When I had a boat, my wife wanted me to name the boat Emotional Rescue. I was like,
there you go. There you
drove
go.
a hole in it. God, I hate that song.
JP, so obviously we lost Eddie Van Halen this week, and you know, Van Halen is just, you know, Van Halen, think about, I grew up in the 70s. I went to high school. I graduated in 82. So Van Halen was the shit for sure. Yeah. And, you know, we can talk about Eddie and the band, but I put out my top 10 list. And this is interesting. It's probably right in your wheelhouse. And I left off Jump, which is a shitty song, and Panama, which is an equally shitty song.
Oh, come on. Come on. You don't leave off Panama, you psycho.
Come at me.
Just stop.
You're an angry man.
People put you in charge of that money? Are you nuts? How do you leave Panama off of any Van Halen list? You can't.
It is unlistenable. It's like a David Bowie Rebel. It's just monotonous. It's not an interesting song. I'm just putting it out to you.
Okay.
Hey, listen, I'll take, you know, a Romeo Delight, Sinner's Swing, Dirty Movies, like all that stuff. To me, Fair Warning is the best of the best. But you don't leave Panama off of any Van Halen list.
Can't.
I don't mean to be rude. I know it's the first time we're meeting each other, but I kind of feel like you lose all credibility when you say Panama doesn't belong on the Van Halen list.
JP, you just hit on an important thing, and I'm glad you're chiming in there. So, Guy, if you told him to rank his top 10 albums, he's got Carole King's Tapestry
100%.
in there. I mean, I don't even think he could name 3 songs that she sings. I think he's trying to be avant-garde, trying to be sensitive.
Rolling Stone. That's what Rolling Stone does.
No, but except that Tapestry is a legit album. I mean,
stop.
Anyway, I mean, but I think Tim is hitting on something. I didn't leave those songs off the track. I just think Jump is it's a brutal song, and Panama to me is just sort of nails on the chalkboard. But that's what makes markets, right?
Right. I don't know.
That's true. It's all your preference, right? I mean, Jump is a well-written hit. There's no question it's a #1 hit. And Why Can't This Be Love is the same idea. But I don't know how you don't like Panama, even though that was a big hit too. But that's a nice, crunchy, great. window down, radio cranked up song. I don't know, Guy.
Dude, Panama. If Panama doesn't make you drive 90 miles an hour, I don't know.
JP, what were you driving in high school? What you have? I bet like something with, you know, 440 big block. What were you doing?
I had my father's old 1976, and I graduated in 1990. I was driving a 1976 Bonneville that was about 40 feet long. Some people would say it was beige. Some might say it was like faded yellow. It was awful vinyl interior. It was one of those where everybody in the front had to move their ass at the same time to get the seat to move forward. Yeah.
Right on. Well,
I hit everything with that thing.
Those are defining moments. So let's do a little bit of like kind of stream of consciousness stuff. Where I'll go back and forth and just ask a couple, and Guy jump in here too. But so Roger first, who versus Stones?
Stones, by just a little. They're both pretty close.
I'm a Who guy. Guy, you're on deck, but I'm throwing this at JP. Grunge versus metal.
Metal all day, every day. Hands down. Judas Priest, Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Anthrax, Motorhead.
There you go. Guy, jump.
Roger, frontmen, Freddie Mercury or Mick Jagger?
Freddie Mercury.
My man. That's right.
I mean, Jagger's great. There's no question about that. But Freddie Mercury, if only he had more time. But still, look at what he does with a crowd, and look at how talented he was. Just as a frontman, obviously the singing is above and beyond anybody. But as a frontman, amazing. Had everybody in the palm of his hand. Incredible.
JP, guilty pleasure band. Who are you closing the doors, putting the shade down, and listening to, like your Duran Duran, or, you know, what do you got? Especially a guy like you who's loving his metal.
This is the most uncomfortable question I've ever
Come on, man. We're all friends here.
I dig a little like Lionel Richie or the Commodores.
Wow,
kind of thing.
Nice.
I do. That's the first thing that popped in my head. I mean, I can find a lot of filthy pleasures in this phone if I really got into it, but that's the first thing that popped into my head.
I mean, JP's getting on me about Tapestry, and he's dropping the Commodore.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, I was driving the other night, and I had the phone, like all my music going through the phone, and Night Shift came on from the Commodores. Dude, that's a jam. If you don't like that song, you have no soul.
But again, and I'm with you on that, but you could make an argument, JP, that when you go Commodores to Lionel, you've gone Genesis to Phil Collins. You've sold out. In other words, like the Commodores were slick, they were cool, they were bad.
It was different. I'll tell you what, man, I've seen Genesis live in the I Can't Dance tour at Giant Stadium. It was one of the most amazing rock shows I've ever seen in my life. And it's hit after hit after hit after hit. It's not that avant-garde crap that you were talking about before when you were blaming him for Tapestry.
Well,
it's like that stuff with.
But Genesis, I get it. But I mean, when then you start mentioning studio.
Well, that was solo. That was solo. That's
right.
That's solo. That's not
terrible.
That's not Genesis though.
But Tim, you're saying Phil Collins sold out when he went solo.
Oh, okay, I got what
his
you're saying.
His first album is amazing, face value, right? Within the Air Tonight, and I Missed Again, and I mean some great songs.
No, that's fair.
And even No Jacket Required, I know there's a lot of hits on there, and Studio is kind of ridiculous, but there's still some great. There's still some great songs on there, and in between, the Blue Album with I Don't Care Anymore is a great album. So I mean, he had his time. So everybody sells out a little bit.
Well, I mean, here's a tough one for you.
Sounds like I hit a nerve.
This one's going to be a tough one because I know where I come down. Bonham or Neil Peart?
Neil.
Wow.
And I love him so much. With no disrespect to Bonham, I mean, clearly, and they're two different types of drummers. But Neil Peart, and maybe it's because he passed recently, but he is Rush is always very close to the heart. Although Zeppelin is in my top 5 as well.
I'm with you, Roger. And in fact, I am a drummer. Although when we mentioned those two guys, I'm basically I'm tapping on the table at school. But what Peart was able to do, both in terms of his speed and his chops and his rudiments, I mean, no one was even close. And I'm a Who fan, so my Who Stones thing is definitely the Who. And Keith Moon is often talked about in the genre of top rock and roll drummers, as he should be, but not because of his technique and his technicals like Neil Peart. It's because
he
was playing lead, right? He was basically doing
Right.
something different back there. So,
Right.
JP.
Charlie Watts is a whole different guy. And Phil Collins is a different guy, but they're all great. Just differently great, I guess you could say.
Actually, you know, it's funny. I saw Clapton toured with Phil Collins, and actually it was a tremendous tour. I mean, and I thought Phil Collins was fantastic. And then I saw Clapton tour with Mark Knopfler, which I thought was fantastic as well. I mean, Clapton to me, that was just my next question was going to be, you know, Clapton or is it that type of thing? I mean, is Clapton at the top of the list, or are there other guys that you put in that list?
To me, I'm more of an 80s guy, but I'll never, ever not understand what Clapton brings to the table. There are certain people, when they're playing the guitar, the sound, you immediately know who it is.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot know the song, but when you hear the sound of the guitar, you know who it is. Carlos Santana is one of them. Eddie Van Halen's one of them. Slash is one of them. Clapton's one of those guys. Jimmy Page is one of those guys. You know, I think all of them are in that conversation. But to me, out of all of them, it's Eddie. It's Eddie. It's Eddie. I mean, you just listen to those first 6 records, and I love both. Listen, I'm not going to get the Dave debate, the Sam debate. I actually love both of them. I love all the music, but those first 6 Van Halen records, look the sound, the sound of those records. And especially once he got to Panama, I mean, my God.
Yeah.
That was the best song ever. Who doesn't like that song?
You guys, I was listening 2 days ago. You guys did a great job on air going through your tribute.
Tim.
It was wonderful. In fact, as Roger, you know, because I pepper you on Twitter now.
Yeah, you do.
For the first time ever in my life, at age 54, I called into a radio show. And I think it was the first time I called in, it was iconic rock and roll guitar riffs, your top 10. And so the most defining. And so meanwhile, I'm like my palms are sweaty. I'm in my car. I'm waiting outside 7-Eleven, like, you know, hitting the redial. I finally get through, and I had thought about it. I'm like, all right, it's either Back in Black. And then I quickly thought, no, it's Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. Cause it's like that. And so I get on, and I think JP, I think it was you that answered. But when I got in there and I said, hey, it's Tim. And I said, hey, it's Tim from CNBC, thinking like that's gonna matter for shit.
Right,
I mean, but anyway, so then I said, Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. And he's like, nah. And I said, can I get another one? He's like, no, you don't get another one. And he hung up on me. And then I was listening to the radio, and I heard you guys for like the next 2 minutes talking about those guys that come in and ruin all the contests because they keep thinking that they can say as much as they want. So that was my jump off point.
You get one guess. If you're wrong, you get one guess.
The interesting part of your recollection of that moment is that when you did it on your podcast the next day or 2 days later, your impression of me was nowhere near as kind as it just was. But I'm glad we were able to get past it and all become friends.
Well, I'm glad you were listening, man. And in fact, I was bummed that I got shut out from Rock and Roll Joes and Joey's a couple of days ago. But I'll be back, man.
Wow, you listen a lot, Tim. We appreciate that.
The door's always welcome to you guys.
So
easy.
Finally, also talk to me about the Syndicate and the radio. And is it? Are you guys on the bone, as in like the bone, like that one? Because that's the one I remember from growing up out here and cleaning pools and listening to the Bone in my pool truck.
Yeah.
That was a hard rock station out east on Long Island, but there's a real raw radio format that's all talk in Tampa, Florida, called The Bone. It's 102.5 in Tampa, and it's all talk, and we do it every day, 11 to 2. And we both love that show. I mean, it's completely different from the BAB show on Long Island, obviously. But all talk, we really get to stretch out and be creative. And
that's awesome. So you know, give us some insight into kind of what you guys were doing. We're tuning in. We're going to make sure everybody's tuning in because I mean, this is the kind of conversation. Not that our conversation,
right.
Guy and I are doing nothing here. But what are you guys doing? Are you talking music? Are you talking sports? What are you doing?
Everything. Really everything. You know, talk radio, politics. You know, with Rush and Hannity, and a lot of shows kind of have had the middays for 30 years. Yep. And news talk has always been there, and sports talk has had their time for about 30 years now too. And apparently what we're doing on The Bone is like the next generation of what's happening with talk radio, where it's lifestyle. We're talking about our lives and the listeners' lives and relating to everything, whether it's Pence with a fly on his head, or talking about what happened in our life this morning, So big world, small world, we cover like everything really. And we don't do a ton of sports. We don't do a ton of politics. But we do everything else.
Well,
and
we got to talk some stocks once in a while. So we should get in there and talk about the markets, which obviously have been giving people a little agita and whatnot, but fun stuff.
We will definitely be reaching out to you come election time.
All right. Well,
because something tells me it's going to get a little bumpy.
You guys do a lot of community work, and I want to make sure we get that in. So, JP, I don't know if you want to start, but I know you're doing a lot of things in the community. You have a lot of things you're passionate about. You want to just tell the audience what you guys are looking at these days?
Yeah, you know what? For years, we've been working with the John Theissen Children's Foundation. And John Theissen, I used to be a board member. Then once the other show came on, I had to step away from my board responsibilities. But the John Theissen Children's Foundation, John Theissen is a Long Island guy who just, when he was a kid, was in the hospital and saw kids around the holidays not have toys and not have what they needed, and got out of the hospital. And he had a brain tumor at the time. He survived that and dedicated his whole life to making sure that kids on Long Island don't want for toys and don't have to worry about a birthday party or back to school supplies or whatever it is. So we're all about helping John Theissen out as much as we can, as often as we can. So that's jtcf.org if anybody wants to check it out.
Yeah, it's a great organization. We've been working with them for 25 years.
Yep.
What comes through from you guys every morning is a commitment to the community and what's going on the island. And I'm sure when you're talking on the bone, it's the same thing. I mean, people, you're seemingly, even on what's often a syndicated national stage, you're the local guys that are looking out for the local guys. And that's appreciated. That comes through. These are difficult times for everybody. You guys are, the government may or may not be sending out. You guys are sending out stimulus checks. And that, that's true. That's awesome. And again, I think the roots of rock and roll are that it's localized, and there's a sense of, you're building obviously around that community, and you guys in a world where even though, again, big stage you're on, but people feel that. People feel it in Long Island, so great job.
Thank you.
Thank you
JP,
very much.
I got one question for you, JP, because you sort of remind me a little, and I mean this in a very complimentary way, but
of course,
Craig Carton's coming back, and I know you're familiar with the story. I don't know if you know Craig or not, but what do you think about his potential return to radio, and what does he mean? Listen, I tell you what, love him, hate him, regardless of his legal woes. I mean, I happen to think on radio the guy's a genius. What are your thoughts there?
I do not know him, but I do know. I once had somebody tell me years ago when Boomer and Carton were first kind of taken off, that someone had said to me, the only difference between you and Carton, that's why it was interesting that you made the comparison. He said the only difference between you and Carton is a good agent. Right. So I have a ton of respect. I think everybody deserves a second chance. And I hope Entercom gives it to him. And I hope they pay him. And I hope he comes back into New York City and gives it a good kick in the ass, because, we need it. He's good on the air, man. Again, I don't know him. I've never met him. I've never shook his hand, nothing. But I know talent when I hear talent. And that guy's got it. So, he paid his debt to society, whatever he got himself trouble for. I'm hoping he's able to put his life back together and get his family back together if that's possible. And I wish that dude nothing but the best. I really do.
I saw his documentary on HBO last night. It was really good. It was actually a good story. It goes by quick, hour, 20 minutes gone like nothing. It was a good story.
And I think it's funny. I wanted to watch it, but I got caught up in something else, as you can probably. Actually, there were two things on last night. They both sucked, but I digress. Tim, you want to take take us out here?
Well, you're probably busy listening to Carole King Tapestry last night.
That or Janice Ian or something along
Janice
those lines.
Ian.
So, I mean,
Melissa Manchester,
So guys, first of all, we gotta get some semblance of a top 5 from you guys on bands on the way out the door here. And
it's going to be very different. His and mine are going to be very, very different.
That's, as we say, that's what makes markets. There's a buyer and a seller of everything. So it sounds like JP's scheming his up. Roger, give me some, and you can call them your top 5 and not rank them.
But it's tough to rank.
It sounds like you've had a lot of influences, and again, it's part of, I think, the magic of music is that you know, Guy can love the Pet Shop Boys and Lynyrd Skynyrd at the same time. Just kidding.
Yeah, I would probably go Led Zeppelin, Kiss, Elton John, Skynyrd, and ooh, this is tough. It's so tough to just do 5.
I know.
I feel like I need 15.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I would probably throw in a Van Halen, I guess. You know, it's tough, that 5th spot. Van Halen, AC/DC, Rush, the Outlaws. There's so many bands I could throw in there. I'm not even sure.
The Outlaws.
Well, Kiss was my first arena show. I think I was in 7th grade. So the Love Gun tour.
Hey, Guy, I'm pretty sure the Outlaws is Roger's Tapestry.
I saw the Outlaws and Molly Hatchet. They played Greengrass and High Tides for about 45 minutes. Anyway, JP, what do you got?
I saw that tour too, Guy.
I'm going Metallica. I'm going AC/DC. I'm going Van Halen. I'll go Iron Maiden.
I was going to say, you got to be slipping some Megadeth in there.
Yeah, no, not Megadeth. I'll go Iron Maiden, and I'll go, again, that 5th spot. I can go Zeppelin is the easy one. You know, Zeppelin. I'd throw Rush in there. I'd throw Ozzy in there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say that our top 500, let alone our top 5, are very different than Rolling Stones all around the table.
100%.
That's true.
JP, Roger, what a pleasure to have you guys and talk rock and roll, talk life. And thanks for coming on.
That was a good time, man. Thank you for having us.
No problem, Tim. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
Appreciate
fellas. And we'll put the organization up on the website. Thanks for all you guys do.
Right on.
We'll see you on the bone later.
Take care,
it. All
guys.
right, thanks, guys.
Later.
Thanks.